The Shadow in the Night. Detective James sat at his desk, sipping his cold coffee, staring at the file in front of him. The case was going cold, and he was no closer to catching the killer. It had started with a string of seemingly unrelated murders. The victims were all young women, all with different backgrounds and lifestyles. The only connection was the small, silver pendant left at each crime scene. As James delved deeper into the case, he discovered that each victim had been to the same nightclub on the night of their murder. The club, Eclipse, was a seedy underground spot, known for its shady clientele. James decided to pay a visit to the club, hoping to find some leads. As he entered the dimly lit room, he was immediately struck by the sense of unease that hung in the air. He approached the bar, showing the bartender a photo of one of the victims. The bartender, a tall, lanky man with a scruffy beard, looked at the photo and shook his head. "I don't know anything," he said, his voice firm but nervous. James sensed that the bartender was hiding something. He leaned in closer, his eyes locked on the bartender's. "I know you know something," James said, his voice low and menacing. "And I'm going to find out what it is." The bartender's eyes darted back and forth, before finally settling on James's. For a moment, James thought he saw a glimmer of fear in the bartender's eyes. But then, something strange happened. The bartender's expression changed, his eyes seemed to gleam with a sinister light. "You'll never catch him," the bartender said, his voice dripping with malice. "He's always one step ahead." James's instincts told him that the bartender was involved in the murders. He arrested the bartender and took him in for questioning. As the interrogation continued, James discovered that the bartender was not the killer, but rather, a pawn in a much larger game. The real killer was still out there, watching and waiting. James knew that he had to catch the killer before he struck again. But as he left the police station, James couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He looked around, but saw nothing. It wasn't until he got home and saw the small, silver pendant on his doorstep that he realized the killer had been watching him all along. James knew that he had to be careful. The killer was getting closer, and James was running out of time. James's heart was racing as he picked up the pendant. It was the same design as the ones left at the crime scenes. He knew he had to be careful, the killer was trying to send him a message. He immediately called for backup and began to canvass the area. But as he searched, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The next day, James received a package at the police station. Inside, he found a DVD with a cryptic message, "Watch me." The DVD showed a grainy video of the killer, his face obscured by shadows. But what sent chills down James's spine was the sound of the killer's voice, whispering, "I'm always one step ahead." James knew he had to act fast. He assembled a team of experts to analyze the DVD and track down the killer. As they dug deeper, they discovered a shocking connection between the victims. They had all been part of an online forum, discussing their deepest fears and anxieties. The killer, it seemed, had been using the forum to select his victims. But how was he able to find them in real life? James's team worked tirelessly to uncover the killer's identity. But as they got closer to the truth, James began to realize that the killer was not just any ordinary person. He was someone who had been hiding in plain sight, someone who had been manipulating the investigation from the very beginning. And then, just as James thought he was closing in on the killer, he received a chilling phone call. "You'll never catch me, James. I'm the one who's been watching you." The line went dead, and James was left staring at his phone, wondering who was on the other end. Thank you for watching. Comment down if you need part 2.